This band first achieved success in the UK charts with 13 top 20 hits during the 1970s. Songs like Funny Funny, Hellraiser, The Ballroom Blitz, Fox on the Run, Love is Like Oxygen, Little Willie. If you don't know who I'm talking about, well, maybe this will give a clue. They influenced a lot of bands like Poison, Motley Crue. Well, this man is the last man standing. That's right. Last surviving member of this band, songwriter, lead guitar player, backing vocalist. Andy Scott's in the studio tonight, and we're going to talk about stories of the suite, the call from Nikki Sixx, working with Iron Maiden, and much, much more. This is part one of a part two episode. Subscribe, hit that bell to be notified. Now put your hands together, everybody, for the legend himself, Mr. Andy Scott. He's in the studio waiting to talk to you. What are the godfathers of glam rock and roll, the sound and all? Andy Scott is here from the suite. I'll give you a round of applause. You hear that? It's like being in a pub, in an arena. This is arena rock. And I made you smile. All righty.
Well, I have to tell you, I've missed that applause. You know, we haven't really been touring much. We haven't done that many dates. We did a 16-date tour of the UK just before Christmas last year, which had been rescheduled from the year previously, and we got through all 16 dates. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of mates of mine who had their tours cancelled or just rescheduled, and we said, well, we're going to try and make it happen. We stuck in a very tight bubble. There were about 10 of us, the band and crew, no mixing with anybody, nobody backstage, food brought in. When we got to hotels, it was usually when everybody else had gone to bed, you know, like a midnight check-in, and you're leaving at 10 in the morning. No breakfast in the hotel. Get it from a takeaway place on the way, and we got through all the dates without any mishaps. You know, so it can be done. It's just you've got to be careful because you know it only takes one person in your proximity, and the tour's gone. You know.
Let's go back, and I want to share some little things I have here, which over this weekend I actually went to Victoria, Canada. I go through all these old vinyl stops, and there's a place called the Turntable, and look if you could see this, look how cool this is.
Oh wow, yeah.
Share that with you. Really cool.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Papa Joe.
I'm not sure whether that was ever released in the US.
Are you serious?
I think it was released in Canada. Is that an RCA label?
That's an RCA. That's side 2. That's Genie side 2, and then side
that
1
was never released in the US because we were with Bell Records, and then we were with Capitol, where we had the success. You know. We had one hit with Bell. The song that came after that, a song called Little Willie.
Very well known. Do you collect your own vinyl? Do you try to pick this up on your travels and things like that?
Listen, man, I've got boxes of stuff.
Do you really?
And I'll tell you, every time, that's a European version anyway, because they used to do colored covers for in England. We were very lucky to even get a bit of paper wrapped around it, you know, usually with the name of the shop stamped on there and the record label, because you know it was just deemed to be a throwaway product. You know, it was like, you know, it's the instant gratification. The Beatles have released a single, you buy it, you play it to death on your turntable, and you move on. You know, whereas the Germans and the Europeans had this ideal of, well, you put an album in an album sleeve. Why wouldn't you put a single in a single sleeve? You know. Well, when you look at that photograph, you see the laziness of just picking a photo to put on the cover. That's from 1971, and it's a TV studio where we are basically we've just arrived and told, get up there, we're going to do some camera shots. we're not even in our stage clothes. It's just
that is funny, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, they just put you up, but you guys look really cool. Even dressed down, you still look good. So this is like sound check. This is
yeah.
Going to this is how you look back in the day. I mean,
Just
you guys look cool.
Just woken up.
I love it. You kept any of the old clothes back in the day? Are you that type of guy, or you get rid of everything?
No, I the fans have got a fair amount, or Hard Rock cafes have got a few bits and pieces. I've got a couple of things knocking about, like a couple of leather jackets from the day that I couldn't even get my arm in. Never mind my body. Now, when I think when I've even had girlfriends, girls who are friends, go into my dressing up box when I lived in central London about 30 years ago, and they used to go, "Oh God," and then they try and get one of my leather jackets on, and these girls were not big, and they go, "My God, you were skinny," and I went, "Well, we were real." We looked like we never ate, but we did.
I mean, you guys from the beginning, you got bands from Bowie, Queen, that they all have the sound. And for you two people out there, they all have the sound of the Sweet. Even Motley Crue, the song Hellraiser. You go and you listen to that tune. And it's back to Kickstart My Heart. And
yeah.
What and I know you heard it all before, but like, when you're hearing all your influences in these other people, what's your outtake of this? When how do you take it?
Well, you take it because a bit of it is true. I think that we all have to have our heroes. When I was growing up, in the real early days, it was a band called The Shadows. Which never really broke over into America. They ended up being very hand in glove with Cliff Richard, who was like Britain's version of Elvis.
Let me tell you, baby, it's called rock and roll.
And the Shadows were great songwriters and great players, and everybody. Well, we most of the musicians from my era wanted to be like them, and then of course the Stones, the Beatles, the Who, the Kinks, all these bands broke through, and now it's just exploded. And from that point of view, I went through so many different changes from the age of probably 15 through to 17, like you wouldn't believe. I probably started off as a mod with a fairly sharp haircut, and ended up looking like Jethro Tull, in 1969. So it was a very, should we say, morphing period where you're going through changes, and you want to be Pete Townsend, and then not a week, but 6 months later, you're playing like Hendrix, because you've been very lucky to be in the support band on Jimi Hendrix's, which I was,
Wow.
Jimi Hendrix's first tour in 1967 in the UK here, and we went with the band I was in. We were a 7-piece soul band, play with the saxes and playing the kind of Otis Redding and Tamla Motown and various other styles in that period. And you see Hendrix, and you kind of go, well, there's only 3 of them, and just listen to the noise that they're making, and of course we changed the band. The band that I was in, you could see that the guys were not, some of them had good jobs. They were looking for their future. They were a bit older than me. And me, I wanted to be a musician. They were just happy to have music as a sideline. And I think me and the singer basically just looked at it and went, well, they're not the same as us, these other guys. So we have to change things. And we changed from that to that, got a record deal and started to do things which led me into the Sweet. So
led you into the Sweet. There you go.
To be honest, though, I think we were all being influenced by each other. Bowie would do something. I mean, I heard I read something when Mott the Hoople reformed quite a few years ago. I went along to see the gig. I was most disappointed, and I've met and I know Ian, but it just looked to me like they were doing it for the money, which they probably were. When I think back to that, and I read somewhere, because somebody was doing an interview and said, "Oh yeah, all the young dudes, we were waiting for a song." But Bowie had said that he would write us a song, and he offered them Suffragette City. And I thought to myself, you turned down Suffragette City? I would have climbed over a bed of nails and hot coals to have recorded that at that time,
Hey man, don't be unkind. Hey man.
Were there ever songs that anybody threw at you that you guys turned down? Anything like that?
We were not signed, but kind of. We were within this. We started out with a producer who had not really had any success, but he was a very good session drummer, Phil Wainman, and he found these songwriters, Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman, who were writing songs, and that's how it all started. 71, 72, 73, we were recording their songs, and our songs were going on albums and B-sides. Now, it doesn't mean that we couldn't, I couldn't write a song. What it meant was that they now were having success, and why would they even think about recording one of the songs that we'd written when that's their business, if you know what I mean, songwriting. So it kind of all comes down to where you want to go. And the first time that we were able to break that mold was when Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman were on the missing list, living in LA for a while. And the record company said, you need a new single beginning of next year. And we'd recorded Fox on the Run on the Desolation Boulevard album, but a different version in Europe. And they said, that song has got something. So we went into the studio, re-recorded it. And as we know, that's probably been the biggest hit that we've ever had. So.
Great song, the elements with everything, you have the keyboard, everything in, which right behind me is right there. And it's funny, the guy was telling me there's different versions, different labels, I guess covers of this album right there, which this album is in pretty nice condition for the most part, if you could see it good over here.
That's the American one, isn't it?
This, I believe, is the American one, which the inner sleeve, side one, they kept it really nice and clean. And I believe it is because it is let's see right here. It's the capital and it's the art. So that's the American. That's the American one right there. It's funny that I noticed on this record, you have side one, right? And then you have side two. But I see the songwriting over here on side 1 and 2. Your songs are on the second side. You get I see the writing credit, and then on side 1, you see Chapman. Is there a reason why they did this like that?
Well, probably ego.
That's all ego, huh?
The European label was a gatefold. It had that on the front cover, and in the middle, it had a whole montage of studio photographs interspersed with, little bit of biog and writing, and the only thing I have to say about the inner sleeve, of the gatefold, the middle bit, is they turned me into a Jimi Hendrix. I'm now a left-handed guitar player.
They made you a lefty, huh? Wow.
Yeah, and they didn't even realize that the word Gibson is back to front on the headstock. So,
Really?
It was somebody in the art department going, well, it would look better if we had a left-handed guitar player on that side, wouldn't it?
That is funny. So this album is pretty much, it's cut and paste everything about it's Sunset Strip. You're on Larrabee, right by there's Gil Turner's Larrabee, which is right over there on Sunset, and then there's you guys over
That's
here.
the equivalent of the outer sleeve of the European one, but they changed the logo because our logo in Europe was a circle with the word "sweet" written through it, almost like the tube in London, that kind of logo. Gotcha. And somebody obviously thought we'll change the logo, in the States. So
let me ask you the name Sweet and then The Sweet. When did it change? Because
around that sort of time, really, 74. Well, when we came through, there were bands like the Kinks, the Who. And there was like a fashion starting when Slade came through, where you didn't have a definitive article before that, So what you're trying to do is you're just trying to keep abreast of something that might be a little bit more fashionable, Slade, Sweet, and then of course Queen came through, so it wouldn't have been the Queen or the Slade anyway, but we were lucky we were able to and quite frankly, if somebody wants to advertise us as the Sweet, which they have, it makes no difference to me. It's the same thing.
Once you're up there playing the music, what do you like? Well, what's your favorite?
What song? Or
the name, the way to call it, the Sweet, or you don't care?
I think I don't really care anymore. Probably, if you'd have asked me back then, I'd have said, well, of course, it's got to be Sweet. You've got to get rid of that sort of slightly old school, way of. But bands like the Kinks and the Who can't really change that because you can't just say Who, because people will go, what,
it doesn't sound right. Who what? This record is a Bible for a lot of because it's Sunset Strip, and then in the 80s Sunset Strip became the place where glam rock's the rebirth of it because of you. Do you realize this? Do you see what you did?
I never really went there. I think I went there a couple of times and found it not dismal, but depressing. I would rather go to the Rainbow Bar and Grill or hang out at the Roxy at a gig or something. Or, there was a place down on Santa Monica on near the pier that we used to go to because there was a couple of good. In fact, that's where Mike Chapman found the Knack.
Really?
Down there, yeah.
Really?
That's the kind of thing that I would have done. But there was a thing in LA called the English Disco, where he actually had a bar called the Sweet Bar or something like that. Rodney and he did a
Rodney on the Rocks.
Rodney Bingham, right. I think his name was. Yeah,
that's right.
And he did a lot to help and promote. And he came to the gigs and he hung out backstage. And he was a nice guy. But I have to say, back then, coming to the place where the English Disco was kind of housed was a little bit depressing for me because it was like, obviously. It wasn't designed like Studio 54 with, all the pizzazz and all the glitz and everything. Mm-hmm. It was a bunch of people who were like-minded coming together in a place that needed a lick of paint, for want of a better word. And I just remember going down there a couple of times. I went there with Brian once. Oh, you've got to come to this place. And I knew why Brian was there because there were lots of people going, oh, we love you. And I'm thinking, I just need to get somewhere where I can sit on my own and have a drink and chat to somebody, you know.
Yeah, not all the case. I totally get it.
In the later part of the 70s, probably when we were on tour with Love Is Like Oxygen in 78.
Love is like oxygen. Get too much, you get too high.
I could tell you, I'm saving it.
Stop right there. If you enjoyed this episode, leave your feedback down below in the comments. Love to hear from you. Also, if you want to see part 2 of our interview with Andy Scott, click on the box right here and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to be notified so you don't miss any other episodes. Until then, everybody, it's only rock and roll and we like it. And who loves you, baby? We do. Now get out of here, you crazy kids. Are you still here? Well, click on the box right here. All right, now get out of here, you crazy kids.